Walkmaxxing is how I manifested almost $25,000 in the last 10 days. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. But first, what the hell is Walkmaxxing? Well, Walkmaxxing is the term that I coined, and it describes active manifestation method. And at its core is basically three things working together: the God-given energy, the intention, and then spiritual connection. And so in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how that works. Now, if you're a skeptic like me, someone who rolls her eyes every time I see the manifestation or Delulu TikTok videos, this next part is for you, because I'm going to use science to show you why Walkmaxxing is so powerful and so effective as a manifestation method. And no, it's not about the energy work. It's not about the higher vibration, frequency, whatever type of stuff. It's actually neuroscience and biology. It's that simple. So let's break it down. And by the way, in this video, I'm also going to show you and do the full breakdown or where the money came in, so you can actually see that it actually working. So the first part about, in the science or the department is what is called money battery. So the way that I think about manifestation is actually creation, because we are creating a different version of ourselves. We're creating different identity. We're creating pathways to quantum leap. And so every creation requires energy. And because of that, without energy, manifestation is just a wish. And think of it as planting a seed and then giving it sunlight. Now, seed is your intention. The sunlight is the energy. And walking is that sun. Now, why is that? Well, turns out when you are doing long distance walks at a certain pace, what happens is the body starts to laying out the pathways, specific pathways, but ultimately what those pathways do is they allow to expand the mitochondria, the power plant of our cells, which basically that expansion allows for a bigger capacity of energy, aka more energy. But that's not it. Another thing that happens is that the body starts creating more mitochondria, which means more energy. And so what you're doing during this walking is you are actually fostering more life force energy, the creation of that. And the thing is, we as humans usually have very little energy. We're always tired. And if you don't have enough energy, if you don't have energy for manifestation, nothing is going to work. And especially when it comes to money, right? You cannot have more money than the capacity of your money battery. But okay, you now know that energy matters, but that's not enough. Because if you have enough energy, but you are running and operating with the old patterns, what's going to happen is you're going to reinforce the current life, the current reality that you're living. So if everything is shitty right now, with that more energy, it's going to go somewhere, and it's going to go into reinforcing this reinforcement of this shitty reality. And so we need to rewrite the old patterns in order for us to move to the new reality. Think of it this way. Whenever they used to, I don't know if that's the case these days, but I remember at some particular point, whenever iPhone would come up with the new iOS or the operating system, whenever they do the update, some of the applications would not work. And those applications would have to rewrite their programming in order for them to start working with this new reality. And so that's exactly the thing that we need to do with our brain. Now, the cool thing about walking is that it does something that kind of works like growth hormones. So if you've ever seen a teenager boy go through the growth spur, this is basically growth hormone at its finest. It's basically doing this action. So when we're walking, we have this thing that is called the BDNF, brain derived neurotrophic factor. It's kind of like the growth hormone, but for your brain. So what it does, it usually creates new neurons and new neural pathways. But when you're walking, especially long distance at a very particular pace, that BDNF activity spikes so hard. And it's basically the breeding ground for new patterns. Whatever you're going to put in is going to reinforce and rewrite so much faster. And so this is why walking is so great, because you can't really run a new reality on the old patterns and the old operating system. But that's where the third part of the science sort of comes in, and I call it the discomfort door. Because yes, you can have the BDNF spike, and yes, you can have the energy, but there has to be something else, a glue that kind of puts everything together. And this is where most people kind of fuck up whenever they hear about Walkmaxxing, because they think, well, I just need to walk 1 or 2 miles. But this is where it's not going to work if you don't have this particular glue. So think about it this way. Let's say you decide that you wanted to grow a booty, and you go to the gym, you grab a 5 pound dumbbell, and you do 100 squats. Well, do you think your butt is going to work? No. I mean, you probably experienced that. Why is that? Well, because there is no sustained effort that leads to discomfort, aka for your muscles to grow. And it's exactly the same with the walking. There has to be sustained effort that is uncomfortable in order for the brain to wire some new things. And one of those things that happens when we are doing activity in discomfort is the body releases norepinephrine, which is basically the chemical that goes and responsible for focus and the memory, which basically means whatever you're thinking about, the intentions, the identity, the ideas, the thoughts that are happening during this walking, it's going to stay inside of your brain. So the best analogy I can give you is whenever I used to powerlift, if I were to go to a competition, you will hear people scream easy weight, especially when the weight was really heavy. Why is that? Well, because when you are in something uncomfortable, maybe sometimes even scary, if you think it's going to be hard, it's going to be harder than it actually is. It's kind of basically like almost manifesting the negative. So because we are doing this, things walking, it allows us to rewire again our identity and how we think about even the world in general. So discomfort is the glue that basically kind of puts everything together and makes everything work. And there is a certain threshold that this glue works so much better. And I will let you know in exactly what it is. So that's going to be the next part. So how to actually walk max? It's very simple, right? So we have to start with the beginning, which is basically the intention. We have to set the intention of what is going to happen in the next 10 days, how much we're going to walk, how much money we're going to get, and so forth and so on. And we have to be very specific, because if not, then nothing is going to work. Why is that? Well, think about going to a restaurant. You don't come to a restaurant, sit down and say, well, give me just a plate of veggies and maybe some meat. You're very specific. And if you're ordering a steak and you want it medium rare, you want it medium rare. And the thing is, the universe or God, whoever you want to believe in, needs specificity, right? Vague doesn't really work. And I know that because when I was very vague with this particular goal for this particular practice, it didn't really come true. Like some parts did, because, well, some were probably more certain than others, but for the most part, it didn't. So as I said, you want to be very specific with the number and the outcome that you're looking for. But be warned, the higher the number, the more earthquakey transformation you're going to have. Why? Because again, this is a active manifestation, which basically means we are going to work through some of the limiting beliefs and the blocks that we have, which allows us to rewrite the identity, the old patterns, and it's not always pleasant. And I'm going to be very honest with you, but again, it's about how you approach this whole thing. So be very careful. I would say start smaller, and then you kind of go next practices, you go a bit higher, a bit higher, a bit higher, but you have to be mentally ready for the transformation that is going to happen. If let's say your goal is to, maybe right now you make 5K, but you want to make 100K, yeah, like 9.5 magnitude earthquake kind of situation here. And there is a very specific way of setting out the intention and the goal. And if you want to know exactly how it works so that you actually see the result, I will be doing a live challenge where I show you exactly how to set the intention, specific daily practices that you need to do, and more. I don't know when exactly, but if you want to know when it's going to happen, I would highly suggest you join the waitlist. I'm going to do a very small cohort group, maybe 20 people maximum. So if you don't want to miss out, make sure you join the waitlist. Now, the walk itself. So the threshold is 12 kilometers. Why 12 kilometers or 8.5 miles? It's very simple. So it has to do with how and where the mitochondria starts to develop. So it kind of on kilometer 8, it kind of goes all the way up from like your feet all the way up to your brain. But the interesting thing that happens is this is where the spiritual connection happens, is on the around 8 kilometer, this is where you begin to open sort of the door to connect with the source. And this is during the last 4 kilometers, this is where I would get the answers to all of my questions that I was asking that particular day. And so now the question is, well, do you walk inside, outside, treadmill? Doesn't really matter. But what I would suggest is the life hack that I did is if you can, if you, let's say, have client calls or maybe at work you have the calls, get on the treadmill. Because what it will happen is it allow you to come up with good ideas, and who knows, maybe those ideas will help with a client. For me, it was to the point the client asked me to get on treadmill every time we have the call because I was giving them really good ideas. And the thing is, I don't remember any of those ideas. They just came out of me and they implemented, boom, and they fixed $100,000 a day problems. And that is massive for a business. That increases your value if you're helping businesses. And so the next part is actually the daily practices. So every single day, there are particular things that you need to do because yes, we're generating the energy, but remember, if we're not rewiring and rewriting the old patterns and old beliefs and limiting beliefs, we're going to reinforce the current energy that we have. And so every single day, we are taking advantage of the BDNF activity that allows us to rewrite old patterns so much faster. In order for us to do, there are daily practices. Now, I'm not going to give you all of them, but I'm going to give you 3. So one of them is my favorite, which I call it 200 gratitude. So the first one is you either write down or say out loud 100 things that you're grateful right now in this current moment in this life. Now, why 100? Because anybody can come up with 10 or even 20, but 100 allows you to go deeper. And that depth is what allows you to create the energetical feeling of being grateful, which again expands your energy and allows you to really see how great your life is. It allows us to attract more positive things in our life. Now, the next 100 is we're going to say and be grateful for the things as if you already were in a reality that you want. So this is basically taking that visualization practice of imagine you're in this reality, and we're combining it together with using the energy that God gave us, right? The ability to increase mitochondria and also rewrite the old patterns into the new ones. Everything working is so much faster. And the last thing that I really love doing, which was that, is actually working with your shadow. Now, it's not in the typical way of the shadow. It's actually so much simpler, and oh my God, does it work so well. So, I'm not going to go into like shadow work, whatever. It's not the thing that usually people do. But ultimately, what is the shadow? Is all the things that you see triggering other people. And the reason it triggers you is because that part of yourself that you're not accepting, you're either ashamed of or maybe you're embarrassed. And so what we do is we identify specifically around money. We work through those, we give it space, and then we move on. And it works so great. I cannot even tell you how great that works. So those are some of the practices. But again, if you want to know all of the practices that we do every single day, I will be covering those during the live challenge. It's going to be 10 days. I don't know exactly when it's going to happen because I'm working on it first. But if you want to be the first to know and if you want to have the ability to join, because I'm going to have only 20 people, highly recommend you join the waitlist. So I promise to show you where the money came from, and I will. But first, I want to share with you something that is more important than the money, which is basically the blocks that I've uncovered around myself. And there's one particular story that I want to share with you to really truly hone in the point of why this method works so well. So there's one particular block that I've uncovered, and the story behind it is still kind of messes up with my brain, but it's basically I saw how the universe speaks to me through money, because there's this concept of money is basically gifts from God. At least that's what I like to think. And so there was one day where I was really tired. Like I was doing a lot of things. The work with clients was extremely time consuming, plus this, Walkmaxxing thing. And so I was running, felt like I was running low on energy. Plus, I'm also surfing, trying to surf quite a lot. And so because of that, what happened was I walked 8 kilometers the first part of the day, but I still needed to walk another 4. But it was so hard for me to do. I was so low on energy. And so finally, I convinced myself, I said that, hey, this is the intention. I said I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. So I go. And as I start walking, guess what? I get more energy. And towards the end of that hour, I had only 1 hour, I feel good. And as I feel good, I'm thinking to myself, well, there's this thing that I've been wanting to do. And this is kind of like the thing that I sort of need to do during this Walkmaxxing, which I know is going to give me the opportunity to attract more money into my life. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm coming back to my Airbnb. The second I walk in, I get a message from a friend who basically asks for a emergency call because something is happening. And so instead of choosing myself in that moment, I abandon myself and I go and help her. And we spend maybe close to 2 hours helping her kind of shine the light on all the things and whatnot. And of course, it was closer to the evening. It was like 8 or 9 p.m. I'm already tired. I don't have energy, so I go to bed. Well, the next morning I wake up and I get refund request for $1,500. I'm like, that's interesting. But the most curious thing happens in the next 2 hours. 2 hours later, my friend sends this message, which I'll put the screenshot, and she says, I don't know what kind of voodoo magic you're doing here, but look, I got 3 sales. And she hadn't had any in 10 days. Guess the amount of money, $1,500. Mind blown. That was literally universe. And I asked that day also, I was like, show me please, where is my money block? Boom, ask and you shall receive. And so this is why this manifestation method works so well. It shows you your limiting beliefs. The universe talks to you, or God talks to you, so you can actually hear it and you see it through money. And so through removing these money blocks, from maximizing the BDNF activity and through connecting with the universe and really hearing God speak to you through money, this is how this manifestation method works so well. And I say that my life changed in these 10 days. I don't really mean, money, because money comes and goes, but at least it showed me the blocks, the limiting beliefs, and I worked through them, which now opens the door so much more. And I see the world as a place with even more opportunities that I've ever even thought about. I've started this YouTube channel, which I feel so excited about. I rework a couple of things in my other business. I'm actually taking more steps into other areas of my life. And it's absolutely fascinating how much more my brain is wired to see the opportunities. It's ridiculous. And more money is coming in from the places that I haven't even saw coming in. So let me show you the reveal of the money. So the first things is that the biggest chunk of money, 15 grand, came from a client. But the thing is, this client wasn't sure if they're going to continue working or not. So I wasn't really sort of expecting that money to come in, but they did. So it landed. Now, another thing that happened was the sales of my offer, one of my products, actually increased. And I didn't do anything. And the interesting thing is that before that 10-day mark, the ads sort of stopped working. The sales were not coming in as frequently as I would like. But ultimately, these 10 days, I would get sales with lots of upsells. So the average order value is about $110. The second thing is, the second chunk came actually from the sales of my other products. The funniest thing is that I've set up some of the email automations and I kind of forgot completely. And I hadn't had a lot of sales. But during those 10 days, every single day, I get a sale for like 47 or 197, multiple of those every single day. So there were days when I would make $1,000 just from the sales. But those are, somewhat maybe expected. But the cool thing that happened was that actually I've gotten some of the so unexpected channels of making money. So first one came $300 from the Apple car cashback, which I had no idea that I even had that. So I applied that onto my next, couple of days living here in Costa Rica. Then I had an email that came with a travel credit with about $400, which is free tickets flying out from Costa Rica. Then I actually had a discount from my Airbnb host. They gave me $700 discount for the next month, which was also quite nice. And then I also completely forgot that I've set up the affiliate program some time ago, and I got an email that said that I've made $500. Didn't even think about it. Like, how great is that? And then the coolest thing is, I would get a freebie almost every single day. My host will bring me free toilet paper or free paper rolls. I will go to a market and I will get fresh fruits for free. I wouldn't even ask, it would just given to me. I would go to a meat market and one of the guys would give me free tacos or like free meat or whatever. So that was so cool to see how even little things like that, the way of God speaking to me and saying, hey, I gotcha. So that's basically the how it works, right? I didn't really make the money. What happened is I removed the blocks that were keeping the money from me. And that's the beauty of this manifestation method. So if you want me to walk with you together, as I mentioned, step by step, give you specifically how to set the intention, all the practices that we need to do in order to maximize the possibility of the manifestation coming to fruition, I will be covering everything in a live challenge. I don't know exactly when, so that's why I would highly recommend join the email list or wait list, where I will, once I have this challenge ready to go, I'm really excited about it, you'll be the first one to know. In the meantime, I'll see you in the next video.